Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back in to talk about patch 7.3.5's Battle Res changes that are going to be coming to Mythic Plus. Specifically, the timer that's going to be added in. There's been a lot of talk about, from MDI really, of like, oh, very heavy Battle Res comps. And they've already kind of talked about, we were already anticipating this change kind of coming in. But what we know right now is the following. It's a 10-minute cooldown for Battle Rezzes, and it's going to be giving one charge to start with as you get into the instance, and then again the timer is going to start from there, and you're going to be getting 10 minutes before you can use the next charge. Anybody's going to be able to use it. The charge is consumed upon acceptance of the Battle Res. That way you're not going to be able to waste any like you can currently in Mythic Plus, where you apply it to somebody and they can decline it and then you just wasted your Battle Res. So that's not going to happen. It's going to operate just like it does in raiding today, where it is upon acceptance. And of course, it's going to apply to all the Battle Rezzes across the board. So you could have one person, let's say your Rested Druid, who is Battle Rezzing the Blood Decay and Battle Rezzing the Hunter, because you built up 2 charges and stuff like that. So it could be the same person doing all the rezzing. It could be the Battle Res from the Rested Druid goes in the Blood Decay, then the Blood Decay gets the Hunter up, right? Either way, as long as you have the charges to use, it'll work. Now, what this the goal for this is, from Blizzard's perspective, is going to be, of course, making things a little bit more even, a little bit more fair and equitable for classes that do not have Battle Rezzes. But this also, this also wants to make sure that you're having comps that are not built around, oh, we just want to stack Battle Rezzes, because we saw in the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, for example, in a competitive format with prize money at stake, teams could just stack Battle Rezzes out the wazoo, and they could really mitigate a lot of big mistakes there. And they could play more aggressively than other teams, and maybe less safely than other teams, because they say, oh, let's pull huge trash packs here. And even if somebody dies, we can Battle Res them really quick. They can get back into the fight. We don't have to worry about it. We could even be building up a death run, for example, and just have a Battle Res out, and then they can res everybody else. Little things like that where you're able to make up for mistakes, or you're able to build strategies around your composition, which is just so much more powerful because it has Battle Rezzes, right? So they want to make sure that things are a little bit more equitable there. But on the other hand, this also really puts a lot of pressure on survivability, right? So having a large amount of Battle Rezzes, for example, in your composition, generally just gives those classes a big advantage, but it also can make up for the classes that do not have large survivability. It makes up for those classes because you can just Battle Res them in a fight. So if you're in high tyrannical keys, for example, if somebody dies, well, it's not going to be a wipe because you have a plethora of Battle Rezzes and you can just keep on using them and things like that. But if you're expecting maybe 1, maybe 2, as you enter like a tyrannical Hirja or something like that, well, that really can put a damper on things, because especially if you're bringing less Battle Rezzes to the group, or if you've already used them beforehand, or you only have 1 to spare, right? If somebody's going to get 1 shot by Hirjas on Tyrannical's Arcing Light every single time, well, you can't really bring them to the group, and you're going to basically wipe if they get 1 shot, right? So that's a very big problem of survivability, and this, in and of itself, does not necessarily mean that, for example, Boomkin's Warlocks, who have Battle Rezzes out the wazoo, are going to be, tossed aside by this change. If anything, you're kind of just going to keep on wanting them, and maybe even want them even more than you did in the past. Not because of the Battle Res comp, but just because they're able to survive so many things, right? You're going to compare them to other ranged DPS in the ways of, I don't know, let's say mages and Ellie Shamans, right? If those classes are not able to have the personals to survive, depending on, what spec of mage they are or whatever, then you're going to be having a very, very big problem of high tyrannicals, right? So depending on a week-to-week basis, you may, if you're looking at some classes which just straight up can't do certain key affixes on certain dungeons unless you're getting crazy, crazy good luck. And this can really cause a lot of issues in terms of just the balance overall, because you're not able to really mitigate some of the weaknesses that you're having with certain classes, because there's large disparity between damage reduction and survivability between different specs. We can go with healers, for example. Usually I'm playing my priest for Mythic Plus, and I got around 3,500 Raider IO score. With that, a lot of times, you're leaning on other people who are able to Battle Res you in case you get into a sticky situation, right? Tyrannical Hirja, for example, is a terrifying encounter to go against as a priest, because your only really big defense is play disc, hit fade, stack shields in advance, and pray, right? With that, you're literally going to get 1 shot by either Hirja or Skovald because of how much burst damage that they're able to do. On the other hand, you have Paladin and Rested Druid, and even if the Rested Druid's amazing Battle Res gets a little bit equalized, both those specs have amazing survivability. So the Druid's still going to have bear form. They're still going to be able to survive really, really big hits and take large amounts of damage, while Paladin already has very high survivability and strong healing that they're able to bring into it. So in many ways, pushing high keys is going to get a little bit more restrictive in many ways. And if you're going into pugging and stuff like that, well, just like in raids, everything is trickle down. Everyone is going to look at what the top people are doing and try to mimic that, and you're going to see some comps, for example, that are going to be, oh, we just want to have this kind of healer, or we just want to have this kind of range because they have survivability skills, right? But this is not necessarily all bad, and I don't want it to kind of come across as that, because long-term, this is a good change, right? This long-term, this is going to push, hopefully, Blizzard to a point where they're getting survivability, the gap between specific specs, closer and closer together than it is right now, because some specs, like I said, can go into huge levels of armor, huge levels of additional HP and stuff like that, and not have to wear defensive legendaries, where some classes do. If anything, this should be the catalyst to really push survivability closer together for a long-term balance, and this also shows better maintenance that's going to be going out for Mythic Plus as a whole. I mean, we may even be getting the opportunity to look at how they're going to look at Battle Rezzes for every single spec. I really doubt we're going to see this, but is this a way to start a conversation about having healers having Battle Rezzes, and that's it? Class Fantasy kind of gets stuck there, kind of a little stab there. But how are you going to be able to balance out Battle Rezzes between classes while balancing out survivability, while balancing out damage, while balancing out all this other stuff, right? So this is the conversation that needs to start happening, at least from our side of the community, if it's not already happening internally with Blizzard, is how are we going to be balancing the PvE environment for another element on top of raiding, on top of PvP, on top of all this stuff, right? There's so much going on now with WoW, and this is just adding another element to it. So I'm very excited as to what they're going to be seeing. My biggest concern is that they're going to be, in many ways, not looking at survivability as much as they should be in the next expansion. That's my biggest fear, and it kind of stems from beta testing, alpha testing in terms of Legion, where they didn't really give Priest any kind of personals until much, much later on. And even then, this expansion, we're still struggling with personals. This is something we kind of brought up in the past. So I'm hoping that this is the catalyst that really starts bringing up the gaps in between survivability for specs. They don't need to be homogenized by any stretch. There's always going to be one class that'll be slightly weaker, or slightly this, or slightly that, right? But that gap definitely needs to close. And this is the conversation that we need to have as we're going to be experiencing this when 7.3.5 drops, is that there is going to be, a day where this kind of has to come in and has to kind of come into play of how are we going to be balancing out survivability, especially when the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, which we haven't really heard anything about yet, is this tournament format going to be continuing? Is this going to be happening after 7.3.5? Is this going to give us an indication as to when 7.3.5 is going to be at? Because ideally, if you're adding in the system that's going to be making it the game a little bit more balanced, a little bit more competitive, things like that, well, then we, want to be able to see how that's going to actually change some of the top compositions from the first MDI, right? In the short term, for this expansion, if it's going to happen again in the expansion, I really don't think that we're going to see a lot of big changes in terms of composition for the top comps. But later on, in the next expansion, that's where I'm really hoping we're going to be seeing some big differences there. Survivability, as you're getting these instances which you can scale higher and higher and higher and get to points where you'll be one-shot by mechanics no matter how good your survivability is. Those are the things that kind of be looking for next expansion as to, how they want to approach those mechanics. Is there going to be a little dampening on some of the damage from these things? And how are they going to be dealing with survivability across the board from all the specs? Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think might happen with the Mythic Plus meta as it kind of comes closer and closer to 7.3.5. And when, of course, you think it might actually be coming out. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow.